we're going to go ahead. We're going to get started. I want to say again, thank you to all of you for joining us today. And I'm assuming you're here because you are looking for some help in hiring. And as you probably know, hiring the right person is immensely impactful. That can be what launches your business, what helps you grow or open that new office. Or if you hire the wrong person, you probably know how painful it is. And so we're going to help you, lean more on the awesome, amazing side and show you some ideas or some things you should try to avoid during the hiring process. So I'm going to be your guide this afternoon or morning, depending on what part of the country you're in. I'm Eric, and I'm a 5392. I'm a VP, and I'm one of our senior consultants here at Kolbe. So the best part of my job is I get to go out and I work with clients every single day. And I help them with hiring the right person, building high-performing teams, things like that. So everything I'm going to give you is going to be super practical. It's going to be stuff that you can implement in your business this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Again, if you have questions, if there's something that we can do to help, please let us know. So before I jump into the real kind of meat and potatoes of the topic, I'm going to start with a quote by my favorite fighter, Michael Chandler. And Michael's quote is, "Nothing bad can happen if you train your butt off, make the right decisions, and surround yourself with the right people." Right? If you work hard, you do the right thing, and you find an amazing team or you surround yourself with the right people, you can accomplish almost anything. We can get a lot done we can get a lot done by ourselves, but when we see those supercharged results is when we've built the right team around us. And it turns out that there actually is a secret sauce or a formula to what makes a team successful, what makes an organization successful, and what makes an individual successful. And what I can tell you is that all of us have our own unique recipe of what that is. And some of the ingredients that go into that recipe are our strengths. So the Greeks had a concept called the three parts of the mind. If you want to think of it as three buckets of strengths. That works too. It's the same basic concept, but we all have all of these strengths locked inside of us. So what I can tell you is that we're all at our best when we can use all of these strengths. We have the thinking or the cognitive strengths. We have the feeling or the affective strengths. And then we have the conative or the doing strengths. And on the thinking side, it includes things like natural intelligence, skills, experience. And what we found in our experience is most of us know what our cognitive strengths are, likely because we've taken some version of a cognitive assessment, right? In the financial world, they want to make sure that if you're going to sell stocks and bonds and mutual funds and ETFs and that kind of stuff, that you're going to take your Series 7 because they're going to test you on some of the rules and regulations around that, right? To get into college, many of us had to take either the ACT or the SAT. When I was a kid, I had to take those Scantron fill in the bubble test because my teachers wanted to know if I was paying attention while we were talking about volcanoes or, dividing with fractions or whatever it was that we were covering that week. Or some of us have taken a short form intelligence test, something like the Wonderlic. These things are all doing it in slightly different ways, but they're measuring some component of your cognitive strengths. If you have never done one of these, you absolutely should, because the more you can know about yourself, the more effective you're going to be as a leader, as a teammate. But that's just one part of us, is our cognitive strengths. We have these two other parts. The affect, what lives there are things like motivation, values, and personality. And almost all of us have taken some version of an affective assessment. Maybe you did something like StrengthsFinder, where you get, your top 5 strengths or your top 30-something strengths. Maybe you took Predictive Index and you got your shape back, or you took Myers-Briggs or DISC or Working Genius. All of these, again, just like the cognitive assessments, are great, and you absolutely should know this information about yourself so that you can understand what motivates you. You can understand, are you a steady, stable, patient person, or are you really, really impatient? Are you extroverted or are you introverted? So we have the cognitive bucket of strengths, which is really important. We have the affective bucket of strengths, which is just as important. But again, all of us have taken some version of these assessments, so we should know this stuff about ourselves. There's this third part that we don't know about ourselves, And we definitely don't know about the candidates that are sitting across the table from us. That third part is called the conative or the doing component. What lives in the conative part of the mind are your striving instincts. Very simply, if it's a random Tuesday and your biggest customer calls and says, "Hey, I have a problem, and if you don't fix it in the next 30 minutes, we're going to go across the street to your competitor," every one of us is absolutely going to strive to solve that problem. That is when our conative strengths kick in. That's when we begin to use our mental energy effectively and we use our innate strengths to take action. The conative part of the mind is all about how you will take action. And one of the cool things about this is it doesn't change over time. We do what are called test retest reliability studies, and we've done those out to 20 years. Over 90% of the time, we see no significant statistical change in the results. Plain English, it doesn't really change over time. So, in the conative part, the person you are interviewing today, assuming that you hire them, is going to take action in the same week or in the same way a week from now, a year from now, 10 years from now. So, this is really durable, and these are things that you can count on with that person. To give us all a little bit of context, I'm going to help all of you understand your own Kolbe A results first, so that then we can apply it in a hiring scenario. So if you have your Kolbe A results handy, please open them up. It could be the online version, the PDF version, you have a printed copy. Any of those will work. If you're like, "Hey, I know I took that thing, I don't remember where it is," totally okay. Go to kolbe.com/findmya. And I think Jen's going to throw that link in the chat there, but kolbe.com/findmya, and you'll be able to find your Kolbe A results. What we're measuring with the Kolbe A is you and how do you get stuff done, the conative part of their mind. The way that we describe it is your MO or your mode of operation. If you've ever heard the term MO before, congratulations, you probably watched a serial killer documentary on Netflix, right? Because generally that's how they catch the bad guys. The bad guy commits their crimes in a particular way over and over and over again. So all of us, we're not bad guys, right? We're using our strengths for good. But when we're using those strengths for good, we still deploy them in a predictable way. That's our MO. And that's what we're looking at with Kolbe. Part of the reason we focus on the MO is because it is unchanging, right? As I mentioned, we do test retest reliability studies. So this stuff doesn't change over time. Also, in a work scenario, it's really helpful to understand how is somebody going to do their job. That's you, me, Jen, the candidates that you're going to sit across the table from. So we really want to understand how do they get work done. And we're all going to have those exact same 4 colorful bars because that's the 4 ways that we all solve problems. But we all are going to have different numbers. And just keep in mind, as you're looking at those numbers, it's not that a 1 is better than a 10 or a 10 is better than a 1. A 1 is an amazing strength. A 4 is an amazing strength. A 10 is also an amazing strength. All of them are amazing for that person. They may just be different than yours. So again, keep this in mind as you're looking at your own results or the results for your candidates. So when you're looking at your Kolbe A results, let's say you're a 8 in fact finder in that red tube. That means to solve problems, you naturally specify. You make sure that we dot those I's and we cross those T's. That is really helpful. However, does it mean that you're unable to take a step back and simplify or look at the big picture? Absolutely not. You can simplify or you can explain things, but your natural way of getting stuff done would be that 8 in fact finder. You would specify. We can flex these for a short amount of time, a couple of minutes, maybe even a couple of hours. But if all day long you have to go from, let's say, an 8 to a 2, you are setting yourself up for failure. And later on, when you begin to hire folks, if you ask that same thing of them, you are going to set them up for failure. So what we want to do is identify what are the strengths that we need in this role. And to do that, you need to know more about you and how you get stuff done. So in your Kolbe A results, like I said, we're all going to have those exact same 4 colorful bars. It always starts with the red one called the fact finder. If you have a 7 through 10, then You do some homework. You're going to gather some information before you solve a problem. It's about 20% of the population. On the other end, if you're in that 1, 2, or 3 range, you're going to take a step back. Look at the big picture, get the 50,000-foot view. And again, it's about 20% of the population. Then we have folks in the middle, fours, fives, and sixes. I am one of these. I describe us as we only need enough information to be dangerous. The most critical, the most important bullet points or highlights are what we can naturally identify. So this is Fact Finder. And again, 1, 5, 10, all of them are strengths. You just need to know what your particular strengths are, or in hiring, what are the strengths of your candidates? Then we all have that blue bar called follow through. Really two parts to follow through. First is organizing and designing, and then the next part is bringing things to closure. So if you're a 7 through 10 in follow through, like our friend Jen there, who's an 8 in follow through, if you need Jen's help with something, she naturally thinks in terms of, I got to do 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. This is awesome. Her superpower is creating systems and processes. She also has this really strong need to bring things to closure, to cross them off her to-do list or checklist. If you also have a 7 through 10 in follow through, you have this same superpower. But that's not the only one. On the other end, you could be like me. You could be in that 1, 2, or 3 range in follow through. Our superpower is in varying the approach or finding shortcuts. If you give me a 5-step process, I'm going to cut it down to 2 or 3 steps and I'm going to vary it. This is helpful in unforeseen circumstances. And then we have folks in the middle, fours, fives, and sixes. Your gift, your superpower is taking a look at what's already created and you spot little inefficiencies. You spot ways that we can make this thing work better, faster, smarter. All right, now let's move on to that next one called Quick Start. Quick Start is about dealing with risk and uncertainty. If you're in that 7 through 10 range, then you're going to improvise. You're going to brainstorm. Someone says, hey, I need your help with this. You throw out a bunch of ideas. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not so great, but either way, you have to get them out of your head and you're going to tend to run towards risk or push in that direction. On the other end, we have 1s, 2s, and 3s. For those of you on the call that are 1s, 2s, and 3s, I want to say a genuine thank you. The reason I'm saying that is people like you keep people like me out of trouble. When you have a 1, 2, or 3, you push back against risk. You see what could go wrong, what we could break, what we could mess up. And so you sometimes protect us from ourselves with those new ideas. Then we have 4s, 5s, and 6s in the middle. Your gift is to be able to do a little bit of homework, check some stuff out. If it makes sense, pretty high likelihood that we're going to pull this thing off, then you're going to jump on board. But if as you're checking it out, you realize, you know what, risk to reward ratio is out of whack, it's not going to work, then you're going to press the pause button and say, let's hold off on this one. Then finally, we have that yellow one called implementer. It's about handling space intangibles. So think of implements, a surgeon's scalpel, a hammer, a screwdriver, those types of things. If you're in that 7 through 10 range in implementer, you need to get your hands on it, touch it, taste it, smell it, create physical solutions to the problem that you're going to solve. Then on the other end, if you're in that 1, 2, or 3 range, you work in the intangible world. You don't need to hold it in your hands. Someone can describe a concept to you. You can start to get that picture in your mind. But we got to bridge the gap between the two sides, right? Sometimes it can be challenging to translate what's in our mind into the physical world. That's where you 4s, 5s, and 6s can really begin to help. So 4s, 5s, and 6s, you see that same picture in your head, and then you start to say, all right, what materials are we going to need? What are the tools that we're going to use to accomplish this task? So that was a very quick overview of what the heck is this Kolbe thing? What is it saying about you? And then now we're going to talk about how does it apply to your candidates. Couple of key takeaways. All numbers are strengths. 1, 5, 10, all of them are strengths. And this stuff doesn't change over time. So if you hire someone because they're awesome or they've been in your industry for 20 years, but they don't match the job, do not expect this part of them to change because our data shows it doesn't over time. And if you've been hiring for a while, at some point in your career, you probably hired the wrong person, and you know how painful that is. What we're going to try to do here today is help you avoid that situation. And most of us have heard the concept of, right people, right seats, or some version of that. So, yes, this is absolutely true, but we find sometimes in application or sometimes in just kind of understanding the concept can be a little bit squishy or hard to understand. So, I have a really quick exercise I'm going to ask all of you to do. Hopefully, you have something to write with, could be a pen, pencil, stylus, crayon, something, and you have something to write on. What I'm going to ask all of you to do is simply print your first and your last name. So take a minute, print your first and your last name. All right. So hopefully you all printed your first and your last name. What I'd like you to do is if you're right-handed, put that pen in your left hand now. Or if you're left-handed, put it in your right hand. Just below where you wrote it the first time, print your first and last name again. So I see Jen giggling because I'm assuming when she wrote it the second time through, probably doesn't look very good, right? Oh, that's all right. So, right, it probably looks something like this. Where first time through, not that bad, but second time through, it's like a 5-year-old wrote it, right? And Atoka, OMG, right, can't read it. Yes, for most of us, this is the case because, right, we're naturally right-handed or left-handed. We all know our names. We've been writing it since we were little kids, but simply switching from a strength to something that's not our strength forced us to take action in a way that was a little bit stressful. We all probably leaned over a little bit more. We all probably scrunched our forehead up a little bit more. This is a very simple example of putting the right person in the wrong seat. Okay, because if we put the right person in the wrong seat, it's kind of like they have to write with the opposite hand all day long. Everything takes longer. It's not quite as good. It's a little bit stressful. So instead, what we want to do is figure out what do we need in that seat and who's the person that has those strengths that matches it. Because as you all know, when you hire the wrong person, it's really, really painful. And it's painful just from a kind of leadership and energy perspective to manage that stuff. But also, it's really painful on the company side just from the actual costs of turnover. So the Department of Labor, they, put out lots of data, and what they say is anytime you turn someone over that's, near entry level, around a minimum wage, somewhere in there, it costs your business $11,713 every single time you lose one of those folks. That's bare minimum, right? That's the least amount it's going to cost you. Realistically, when you add in some additional factors, you can probably triple that. So again, frontline, near entry level type of position, it's probably going to cost you about $36,000 every time you lose one of those people. Instead, let's on the front end make sure that we bring the right folks in so that they can grow and thrive. And if you're hiring, let's say, a leadership type of position, someone making 6 figures and up, it's probably going to cost you $1.5 million or more. And the reason I can confidently say that is there are lots of other factors that go into this. Yes, do we have to pay for the job posting on LinkedIn or Indeed? Yes. Do we need to pay for Kolbe assessments? Yes. But those are just the components of the hard costs. The soft costs are where it really begins to add up. So here's an example. I think there was someone who was hiring for sales right now. Think about the person that you lost. How many leads did that person not convert? Right? And then think about how much do you spend acquiring those leads? How much does it cost you to host your CRM and all of the other stuff that goes into getting that lead in front of your salesperson and then having them either close or not close that business? That's how these costs begin to stack up. That's in sales. What about, let's say, customer service? What if the person you let go in customer service did not deliver very good customer service, so people didn't renew with you, right? That's going to, again, hurt your business. That's another cost inside of turnover. Think about you from a leadership perspective, right? Generally speaking, we don't just walk in one day and say, all right, so and so, we have to let you go. Generally, what we do is say, hey, this is not going very well. Here are some things that we can do to turn it around. And then we have another meeting where we say, hey, we really got to turn it around. Then we have another meeting. Then we put them on a PIP. And then, right, we eventually have to let them go. As a leader, that stuff is draining. It wipes you out. You have to prepare for it. You then have to have that awkward conversation that most of us don't like. And then you kind of, once it's done, you have to take a moment, clear your head, catch your breath, so that then you can go to your next meeting and perform at a high level. All of that has a cost. So instead of just hiring anybody that we can in to fill that position, let's figure out how do we identify who we really need and find someone that's going to thrive. That's a portion of why we created the right fit process. So the first step in the right fit process is we need to figure out what are the job requirements. I saw somebody in the chat mention that they put their job postings into AI. That is a great way to help you identify, right? What are the descriptions, or how does this job need to get done? We have a tool called the Kolbe C, which is going to very clearly identify how this job needs to get done on a daily or weekly basis. So that's step one. And a portion of it is, yes, creating that job description. Then our tool will draw from you what are the conative talents needed. Then what we also do is we look and see how well are you going to work with your boss? Because what we found is it doesn't matter how smart, skilled, capable you are. If you and your boss constantly do this, it's not going to work. So what we do is we combine the job requirements with the leader of that position. Those two pieces together help you build a job profile. Then, once we have that profile, we assess candidates against it to see who is going to thrive in that kind of environment. Who can just show up and be them? I mentioned Jen's MO earlier, right? She's a 7842. If you need someone to create systems and processes and checklists, she's amazing at that stuff. But if you need a position where just like, I don't know, figure it out, just go for it and see what happens. Jen, you can see her face, right? That would totally mess her up and she would not thrive in that kind of environment. I don't want to do that to Jen. She's awesome. Instead, let's just put her in a position where she can use the talents that she has. So this is the reason why we first define the position, then we assess how well you're going to work with your boss. Those two pieces create the job model. Then we can assess candidates for fit. When we go through that process, like I said, what we do is we create a profile for a position. And many of you have questions of, hey, what is the ideal salesperson or admin or something like that? What's the ideal Kolbe for that role? The short answer is it depends. What we've shown in our research is it's not universal. An awesome admin in one company is, 75% different from an awesome admin in a different company, depending on the requirements, the leader, all of that stuff. So intentionally, we build custom models for you, your position, and your organization. So in this scenario, we're building an admin role, right? And so our ideal admin is going to be somewhere in that 5 to 7 range in fact finder, 1 to 7 in follow through, 1 to 3 in quick start, and then 4 to 5 in implementer. Once we have that model, now we have candidates come through our normal process and we can see, does this person fit or not? As an example, if we were all hiring for this admin position and I applied, I would not do very well at this role. There are lots of things I am good at. There's lots of things I can do. This role would not be one of them. You'd be very frustrated with me as your admin. So in this report that you get for each candidate, we identify where are the areas where they fit and why. And we also identify where are the areas where they do not fit and also why. And then we've tried to make it super easy. We've created an A to F grading scale. Think of the grades that we got in school. If you got an A on a test, you did awesome. If you got an F on a test, you did not do very well, right? Same kind of situation here. So if you think of this is the model for the job, an F, their Kolbe results probably look like this. An A, probably pretty close to what it is that you're looking for. Again, here, what we're trying to do is set the organization up for success by knowing what we need and then finding that person. A portion of how we can do that is you see in this report, there are little bullet points where it says, hey, here's what we need in this position. You can literally copy and paste some of these bullet points and put it into your job posting on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever it is that you look for talent. So we try to make this process as simple, as streamlined as we possibly can, but still get you the most accurate results. So we build a model, then we assess candidates. And there are lots of different ways that we can do that. Like I said, this is an example of someone who does not fit that position. Ideally, we want to find someone who does, someone who can just show up and do things the way that they naturally would. If you can do that, that's when folks get in the flow state, they get in the zone. Work just feels easy and it can just, right? They're just accomplishing more and more stuff that really matters, stuff that has an impact in the business. Great question, Akoda. So there are two parts to building the model. One part, yes, is the Kolbe C, which is how does the boss view that job? The other part is we also incorporate the boss, the leader's Kolbe A, to make sure that whoever you hire works well with their boss. So this is an example, and our friend Paul here would be awesome at this customer service position. Or we have our friend John here, who is applying to be the next CEO. He is not a good fit for that role. So if we hire John and make him the next CEO, that company is going to struggle, and eventually John is going to leave to find his next opportunity. You can imagine how painful it is if you make a mishire at the C-suite. Yes, that affects the entire organization, but I don't think it's actually any less painful if you hire the wrong customer service person because they are front facing. They are helping your customers all day long. They're interacting with your teammates. So, regardless of the level of the organization, build a model for the job and make sure we have the right person. And what we can also do is we can take a look and say, if we hire this individual, how are they going to interact with the rest of their team? This is important on a senior leadership team, a project team, a software development team, anywhere where humans are working with each other. We want to make sure that if we hire this person, we're not overweighted in a particular strength or underweighted in a particular strength. So there are lots and lots of ways that we can slice and dice this data to help you find the exact right person for you and your business. So as you think about your hiring process, it probably looks something like this. And the reason I can say this confidently is at Kolbe, we help approximately 1,200 companies a year hire folks. And so we help them build these models and we help them assess candidates and those types of things. Most of the time, the process looks something like this. Figure out you have an open spot. So then we got to post it on LinkedIn or Indeed. Then we have a bunch of resumes come in. Someone has to make a yes or a no pile. Sometimes they make a maybe pile, right? Then you do your initial phone screen. Hey, we pay this much. We're in the office this many days. We're looking for these qualifications, all of that initial phone screen stuff. What we then recommend is at that point, that's when you should have your candidates take the Kolbe A so that you can assess them against the model. Anyone who then is a B minus or higher, so B as in boy, minus or higher, we can continue them in the process. The reason that we put the Kolbe A at that point is most of the time the hiring manager is doing something else other than hiring, right? They're head of operations, they're a sales manager, they're a customer service director. We're taking them out of their real job to interview candidates. If we're going to do that, let's only let them meet with people who have a high likelihood of success. So now, right, we have candidates take the Kolbe A. Anybody that's a B minus or higher, they now meet with that hiring manager. And then depending on the role, you may have another in-person interview. Then you make your job offer. The person says yes. And now the employee starts in 2 weeks or whatever time you determine. For most of us, this is when our hiring process stops. And what I will say is if this is where your hiring process stops, you're missing a couple of very important components of hiring. Because we don't just want to get them in the door, we want to bring the right person in. We want to successfully onboard them so that eventually they can become a successful employee. So First, we build a model, then we assess candidates, make sure they're the right fit for our organization. Then we welcome them onto the team. Then, when they show up on day one, we need to effectively onboard them. What does that actually look like in real life? On day one, what it should look like is if I'm coming to work for Diani, then on day one, I get a report that says, hey, here's how your new boss, Diani, is going to take action. Here's how she's going to do stuff. And here's how you are going to do stuff. Here are areas where the two of you could potentially butt heads. By simply just knowing this stuff ahead of time, it kind of narrows those gaps, right? You can look at the two of us and you can see, right, that we're quite different. Doesn't mean we shouldn't work together. We're actually a pretty good team, but there is the potential for some conflict if we don't know how each other operates. So if we can show them this, show them how to communicate with each other, we're going to speed up that onboarding process. So that's the first part. On day one, I get a report that says, here's how my boss does things. My boss gets the same kind of report on me. Then, probably within the first week or so, I need to know what my job looks like. What are you, my new boss, expecting of me? I always think about this from a sales perspective. If you go to a sales team and you say, hey, team, I need you to sell more stuff. They may sell more stuff. They may not sell more stuff. But if I go to them and say, hey, I need you to sell 20 more of this in the next 3 weeks, they are much more likely to hit that 20 of these, of whatever it is I'm trying to get them to sell, simply because I gave them a clear target. This is what we're doing for these new employees. Hey, you want to be awesome? You want to be great at your job? This is what it requires. This is what it looks like. This is all a part of that onboarding process. Again, normally you would see this about in the first week. Then, right, of course, you're going to continue to work with them, mentor them, show them how to do stuff, and, meet with them daily and then eventually stretch it out, probably a couple days spread out. At about the 90-day point, what you also want to do is you want to get a perspective on how does that new employee see their job. The way you do that is with the Kolbe B. So we have 3 main indexes. Kolbe A, it's about the individual, how they naturally problem solve. Kolbe B is how does that person see their job. The Kolbe C is what we were talking about when we were building the model, is how does the leader want that job done. So about 90 days in, we want to do a quick double check and say, hey, how do you think you should be doing your role? Because if it's identical, awesome, we're going down the right path. But what I will tell you is 98% of the time, that is not the case. There's a little bit of a disconnect between the person's A and the B. That's okay. That's now our job as leaders to come and step in and say, all right, I just need you to show up and be you. Lean more into your fantastic 8 in follow through or your 9 in quick start. That's how you're going to be successful, so we can course correct. If we don't do that at about 90 days in, right? Think about leaving from LA on a boat and trying to get to Tokyo, right? The more you're off as it goes further and further down the line, the more off course you're going to be. So let's catch it early. We found that that sweet spot is at about 90 days. So A is for the candidates, also for the leader. B is for that employee, how they see their job. C is how does the job need to get done. So this is the process that we've created. Like I said, we try to streamline it as much as we can. What do we need in the job? Let's build a model around it. Now let's see if the candidates actually fit. Then once we get them in, let's help them lean into their strengths. That's where their awesome is hidden. When you signed up for this, we asked the normal stuff like name, email address, so we can send you, the links and all of that. But we also said, hey, what are you interested in learning more about? And y'all asked it in slightly different ways, but a portion of you asked, how do you find people with the right Kolbe for the job? Fantastic question. And yes, we can help with that. The first step is building that model. You have to be crystal clear on here's what I need in that position. Our right fit process helps you build that. Once you have it, I think I mentioned this earlier, what you can then do is you can literally, from that report on the job, you can copy and paste these bullet points and drop them into your posting. So, as an example, if we look at the blue one here, it says a right fit for customer service will work sequentially, systemize processes. I can tell you as a 3 and follow through, if I read that in my job posting, I would absolutely say, nope, this is not the right position for me because that sounds like no fun whatsoever. However, if Jen reads that, she's like, yes, this is my jam. This is what I'm amazing at. In this role, we want more Jens. We want fewer Erics. So what it ends up doing is kind of narrowing your focus of candidates. So it's only the folks that have what you need in that position. So I know there are lots of other questions. I know hiring is really, really challenging. So we're just going to open it up and we're going to answer as many questions as we can for you about how can we help make this process a little bit easier and help you be more successful in hiring. So feel free to chat in the chat box or chat bot all of your questions. Elizabeth, great question. What should the implementer be for the customer service job? It depends. There is no uniform answer. We, by design, don't have off-the-shelf models for customer service or sales or CEO. What I'd recommend to you, Elizabeth, is let's get you set up with the right fit. Let's have the leader do an A. Let's have the leader do a C so we can build that model for you.
So we can get expectations of how long does the assessment take?
Roughly how long does the assessment take? Was that the question?
Yes.
Okay. So the Kolbe A is not timed. It's going to take you generally about 15 to 20 minutes to complete. Kolbe Bs and Kolbe Cs are also not timed, generally about 10 or 15 minutes. So from the leader create the model perspective, you're probably looking at somewhere between 30, 35 minutes. On the candidate side, again, probably 15, 20 minutes, something like that. In our system, how long does it take to grade a candidate? Essentially, how quickly can you click your mouse? That's how long it takes because it's literally just click, let's measure this person against the model, and it instantly generates that report for you.
Okay, and have considered at what point should you have a candidate take the Kolbe A?
Yeah, great question, Karen. Where should you have them take it? There isn't a hard and fast, you must do it here, you must do it there. But what we found though is there is a bit of a sweet spot. I'm going to go back to this slide here. So what we found is really helpful is about right here in the process. So let's build our model. Let's then steal some of that language from the job model, put it in our posting. Then we post it. We make our yes, no pile for resumes. We do a phone screen. Those who pass the phone screen, those candidates should then take the Kolbe A and we should measure them against the model. Anybody that's a B- or higher, they continue in that hiring process. Great question, Karen. Okay, we have a couple of minutes left. We would love to help as much as we can. So if you have questions about hiring, about Kolbe in general, all that stuff, we would love to help. All right, Clinton has a question. Do you ever use these tools to analyze a current business unit at its employees, people already hired? Yes, absolutely. So in the perfect world, if you kind of think about your org chart, you would have a model built for every position in your org chart. Then you would have every person inside of your business take a Kolbe A, and we're going to assess them to see, do they fit that position? If they don't, we are not saying, all right, now it's time for them to leave. That's not what we're saying. If there are some differences between the job and the person, let's take a look and let's say, hey, does this person have the skills and experience that we need? Do they match our company values? Do they work well with the rest of the team? If those things are all a yes, but they don't fit the job, is there another job inside the company that we could move them through to? Or do we have a little bit of leeway in this role where we can make some subtle tweaks so that we're not stressing them out? They can still just show up and be them. So Akoda had a question about reliability, validity. Jen will put the link in there to all of that. I can tell you, yes, we absolutely do validity studies. A validity study, the kind of layman's way to think of it, is our research partners make sure that we're accurately measuring what we're supposed to. Reliability, think of it like test, retest. We've done test retest at 2, 5, 10, and 20-year intervals. Over 90% of the time, we see no significant statistical change in the results. Plain English doesn't really change over time. So yes, we have all that data and Jen put it in there. All right, so Elizabeth put in there. So she's a specifier. She's a 8657 and the person is a 6545. So tell me a little bit more about what you need from that, Elizabeth. I got the MOs. I see it's two different people. How can I help with that?
There's a process for just one hire as a trial. And I'm sure if we want to scale it to all hires, can they use that model?
Yes, you can. So what I would tell you to do, Mark, is email info@kolbe.com or give us a call at 602-840-9770. And our team can help you set up a proof of concept with a position you're hiring for right now. Once we prove, yes, this is awesome and it works, then we can help you with scaling it out to the rest of the team. So Elizabeth, how are perfect fits measured? Great question. So Elizabeth, if you think back to when I said how we create the model, there's a couple of components. To simplify it, think of it like this. The boss is Kolbe A plus the boss is Kolbe C. Those two things together equal the job model. That's how I identify what we need in the position. Then we have the candidates take the Kolbe A. We measure them against that model. So in practical terms, it looks like this. We build the model. We have candidates take the Kolbe A. We see, are they a good fit or not? And quick disclaimer, right? I mentioned in the beginning that we have a whole bunch of strengths locked inside of us. Kolbe does not know everything about a person. I don't know anything about their skills. I don't know anything about their intelligence. I don't know anything about their personality. We just know how this person gets work done. And there is no assessment in the world that knows everything about a person. So Kolbe should not be the sole determining factor in your hire, no hire equation. It's an important piece, but it's not the only thing. You have to look at the entire human. So Elizabeth, I see you. So you're specifying a little bit more. Thank you. What is a difference? So basically you're trying to say like, what's the difference between the 8657 and the 6545? There are a fair amount. So we have, let me go back here. So if you look at those numbers, it's always 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 10. The difference between, let's say, a 7 to an 8 is very subtle. You probably wouldn't notice it. But the difference between a 6 and a 7, you would definitely notice a different way of problem solving. The exact same is true as you go from a 3 to a 4. You would notice a different way in problem solving. So if you're an 8, as an example, Elizabeth, in FactFinder, you're going to be much more specific, much more precise than that person who is a 6. And that is true for any of those where you see differences in the numbers. If they cross those, we call them zones from 3 to 4 or 6 to 7, you're going to notice different methods of problem solving. If you want to go a little bit deeper and you want a in-depth overview of what's the difference between the two of us, our team would absolutely love to help with that and have a one-on-one conversation with you. So our salespeople who are 1 and 2 in quick starts, not good. It depends. Again, it's part of the reason why we don't do off-the-shelf models. We have looked at this. The model, if let's say you're selling $1 million SaaS products to the Fortune 500, that sales model is very different than if you're selling Hondas at the dealership around the corner. Both are sales, but the model looks different. So it's all about what's needed in your business, who are your clients, and what is your company selling. So my suggestion is build a custom model. So I see a couple other questions. So Karen, about pricing. So it's going to depend on volume, and we have lots of different ways to structure this and reduce some of the pricing. Ballpark, if you're going to hire for one position, measure your top couple candidates, it's going to cost you somewhere $500-600, something like that. When you think about the fact that just in hard costs, if you lose a frontline entry level person, it's going to cost you about $12,000. It's really a no-brainer. Would you spend $500 or $600 to save $12,000? Almost everybody would. And then Grace has a question. Fit is used to exclude rather than include. We advise the opposite. So we want to identify who is the right fit for that position. But in the perfect world, you have your entire organization mapped out. So if maybe someone isn't a good fit in customer service, maybe they're an awesome fit on our marketing team or on our sales team, something like that. So that's a component of how we look at it. As far as social fit, again, that's not something we measure. That's more in the affect. Does this candidate align with your company's core values? Does their personality jive with the rest of the team? If you're a three-piece suit kind of office and somebody rolls in board shorts and flip-flops, culturally, they're probably not the right fit, regardless of what their Kolbe A results say. So again, you got to look at the entire person, not just the Kolbe results or their experience or their education. If you want to have some more one-on-one dialogue, again, we would love to help. Call our main line, 602-840-9770. Our staff is amazing. They will happily help you get set up. They're going to understand your exact situation so that you can get the right solution for you. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Again, if we can help, give us a call, 602-840-9770. Thanks all. Reach out to us if there's anything else that we can do to help. We'll see y'all at the next one.